Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. In today's video, we're going to briefly analyze the main tactical themes in Arsenal's narrow 1-0 win over FC Zurich. So in today's video, first we'll focus on how both sides look to press, then we'll shift to Kieran Tierney's impact in the opening half, and lastly we'll focus on Arsenal's second half issues. So when we break it all down and we do look at the board, we have FC Zurich playing in a 3-4-1-2, and Arsenal adopting the same shape but with different personnel. They had Nketiah starting from the left with Gabriel, Jesus, and Nelson up front. They had a new midfield trio with Lokonga and Fabio Vieira ahead of Elneny, and then in the back they ended up seeing Tierney starting at left back and White and Holding at right back and center back with Gabriel. So what we ended up seeing here was that there was a clear intent to ensure that Arsenal couldn't build out of the back, and FC Zurich's press did a very good job of ensuring that they struggled to do that. They had the front two closing down the center backs, and then they had Nketiah sitting on Elneny, and then that leaves the midfield duo to deal with Lokonga and Fabio Vieira's movement. They would have the wing backs pushing forward to close down Tierney and White, and then that left 3v3 at the back. And the only way that Arsenal successfully were capable of bypassing this press is when Gabriel Jesus dropped in towards that midfield zone, dragging away a center back, but having enough space to receive the ball and attempt to shift it out in towards the wider areas, or help one of his fullbacks or central midfielders to push forward to progress the play. In many ways, Arsenal did a very good job of pressing as well, as they had their front three closing down Zurich's back three, then they had the fullbacks pushing forward to close down the wingbacks, and the same battle persisted in that midfield zone with Lokonga and Fabio Vieira closing down the deeper midfielders, and Elneny tracking the movement of Nketiah. Frankly, the only manner in which Zurich did get themselves into good positions was when they won possession and were able to slide the ball into the gaps beyond Tierney and White, and that would result in the strikers bending in towards the channels to receive the ball, and that would pull out Gabriel or Holding. And frankly, in situations where Guerrero even drifted central to drag White in towards that midfield area, Holding and Gabriel did a fairly decent job with help from Elneny to close down that threat in the wider areas. Therefore, when you question how Arsenal were capable of taking the lead and creating some legitimate goal-scoring opportunities in that opening half, it stemmed through the movement of Kieran Tierney. However, in the build-up to his opening goal, the template was provided. It simply stemmed from Nelson receiving the ball in that right channel zone, and it was Ben White making the overlapping run to help Nelson split the wing back and the left center back to play White in towards the byline. From there, that placed White in a position where he could pull back the ball in towards the path of Fabio Vieira, albeit it was due to a deflection. And while Fabio Vieira's shot was blocked, it ended up falling into the path of Kieran Tierney, who fired a superb effort beyond the keeper. Now, you would think that that would be the template for Arsenal to create more chances down that right-hand side, but the issue that they encountered is that Nelson is strongly right-footed, so he would often look to carry the ball in towards central areas, but he's predominantly doing it with his right foot, and it required additional touches to get passes in towards White that was making overlapping or underlapping runs, and that often resulted in Nelson carrying the ball centrally and not having an impact on the game. Because when you look at Arsenal's front line, you have Nelson looking to carry the ball centrally, and you have Nketiah, who's more of a wide forward, looking to drift centrally as well. In those situations, he's occupying Canberry, and that creates space for Tierney to push forward to attack the right wing back. Ultimately, the manner in which you could get White involved down that right-hand side is if you have Nelson occupying Guerrero, and then you have Fabio Vieira pushing off his marker to occupy one of the center backs. From there, White would have space to push forward because of how narrow the FC Zurich front three was, and Tosin would be required to track back to close him down. If that wasn't the case, White could push forward and pull out the central midfielder, but then Fabio Vieira could drop into pockets of space, and from there, White could play the ball in towards him. Whereas on the left-hand side, it wasn't Tierney's overlapping runs that was causing havoc for FC Zurich. It was either his individual slaloms in space down that left-hand side or his underlapping runs beyond markers to get him towards the final third. However, on that left-hand side, Nketiah wasn't hugging the touchline. He was drifting laterally to occupy Canberry, but there were situations where he dragged the right wing back with him, and then that allowed Tierney to run at the right center back. The other alternative here for Arsenal was that with Nketiah drifting in towards central areas, Lokonga was also pushing forward to occupy a defender, and that left space for Tierney to push forward to run in towards the final third. From there, he was getting into positions where he could go 1v1 with either the right wing back or the right center back and pull the ball back in towards runners that were breaking in towards the penalty area. And on a few occasions in that opening half, he placed his teammates into legitimate goal scoring positions. In this example, you witness Gabriel sliding the ball across the front three for Tierney, and when Tierney receives the ball, he can now run at Canberry as Nketiah has taken away the right wing back. As that play develops, Tierney carries the ball in towards the final third, and Nketiah is drawing the right wing back in towards the penalty area, and that's where you see Tierney taking the right center back towards the byline and delivers a cross towards the far post where Fabio Vieira is placed in this legitimate goal scoring position, but he wastes the opportunity. If we look to another example, you witness Tierney winning possession in his own half, and then you see him combining with Lokonga to take a player out of the game, and it allows Tierney to carry the ball forward down the left touchline, and as you can see, he carries the ball towards the halfway line with pressure being applied, and as that play develops, Tierney carries the ball forward towards the back line, he slides the ball out towards Nketiah, and watch his movement. He runs beyond two Zurich players to make an underlapping run for Nketiah, and that allows Nketiah to slide the ball across Canberry. No one picks up Tierney's movement, and Tierney receives the ball in this position where he pulls the ball back to an unmarked Fabio Vieira, and from this position he should be doubling Arsenal's lead, but his efforts blocked. And where Tierney's impact in the second half did decrease, and we'll get to that in a minute, what we ended up seeing was that from a defensive aspect, he made several vital interventions, whether it be last-ditch tackles to block crossing towards the box, or recovering to make vital tackles to ensure that FC Zurich couldn't break in transition. In terms of the second half, we witnessed FC Zurich turn to Marquinhos as their number 10 and push Okita with Tosin up front. And while that did play a key role in FC Zurich creating chances, Arsenal were also responsible for their own downfall. Out in the wider areas, we witnessed Nketiah beginning to pick up more wider positions, and from there he looked to run at the FC Zurich backline. And although Tierney was making overlapping runs in wide areas, Nketiah wasn't looking to play him in, and he was looking to cut in central on towards his right foot to get into shooting positions. That ultimately stifled Tierney's impact down that left-hand side, and even when Reiss Nelson eventually played on that left-hand side due to Bukayo Saka's introduction, we didn't see much combination play from Tierney and the wide player. Tierney was still capable of having an impact by playing positive passes in towards the penalty area, but when Lokonga or Nketiah received the ball in those zones, they failed to test the goalkeeper or create for their teammate. Over on the right-hand side, it was only when Bukayo Saka eventually came on where he hugged the touchline and allowed White to make overlapping and underlapping runs, but Arsenal failed to continue their success down those wider areas, and ultimately they struggled to consistently create chances from open play. Now, the issue that they encountered with FC Zurich wasn't tactical, as they often made like-for-like positional changes, but with Marquinhos playing in that number 10 role, we saw early glimpses of him receiving the ball beyond Lokonga and Elneny in pockets of space, but his most impactful moments in that second half followed Thomas Partey's introduction, and what we ended up seeing was that Thomas Partey struggled to keep Marquinhos ahead of him, and he was often turned or he was unable to get a challenge in towards the number 10, and from there Marquinhos was linking play with his attacking players and getting them into advanced positions in the final third to create chances or test the goalkeeper, and there were even situations where Marquinhos was simply running off Thomas Partey to get himself into legitimate goal scoring positions to serve as a legitimate goal scoring threat. Here you witness the Zurich substitute midfielder playing the ball into Marquinhos, who steps ahead of Thomas Partey, and before Partey can apply pressure, Marquinhos plays a first-time ball towards his strike partner, and that allows the strike partner to carry the ball across Thomas Partey. He runs at the center backs, and before Gabriel can step in, he fires an effort inches wide of the net. In stoppage time, Thomas Partey receives the ball in his own half, and he's swarmed by Marquinhos and Santini. He overtouches the ball, and when Marquinhos steps in, Santini makes a challenge from behind. The ball falls into the path of Kryeziu, and here you can see Thomas Partey sticking out his leg attempting to win possession, but Kryeziu easily dribbles beyond him, and now he's able to run at the back four, and what ends up happening is that when he bypasses Thomas Partey, Tierney's dragged into a central position, and now Kryeziu could slide the ball into Marquinhos in right half space, and from this position he fires a first-time effort towards the 6-yard area, but unfortunately for Zurich, that delivery falls into the path of Ramsdale and his strike partner can't tap it in. So as you can see, Arsenal were far from perfect here despite identifying a clear route to creating legitimate goal-scoring opportunities in wide areas in the first half. Ultimately, they were fortunate to overcome the personnel and structural issues they encountered in the second half.